Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Cindy Ingram. She's a writer, artist, poet, holla, podcaster, educator, and entrepreneur. She is the author of Art is About Being Whole, a memoir, publishing on October 31st, 2023. Connecting with works of art and crafting innovative learning activities, she has dedicated her life to bringing the magic of art connection to others. A former art museum educator, art teacher, and the founder and CEO of Art Class Curator. Welcome, Cindy Ingram, to A Little Less Fear podcast. So nice to meet you finally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cindy, this is an incredible journey you have here. And I love this commonality that we have here is I'm also a poet. You know, I started writing when I was about 7 or 6 years old. And when I started writing, I don't even know where it came from. I just started these metaphors and these haikus, these words were coming out of me. And I remember being a teenager looking back at my writing as a kid, from being a little kid. And I thought, how was I writing like this as a 7-year-old? And the only thing I can think of is that it's just part of the collective unconscious. It's part of the spirituality and something that just flows through me and channels through me. And so at the very end of our episode, there was a poem that I wrote that I was inspired by you, by your profile. And I'm going to share it at the very end. So thank you so much for
thank
sharing
you.
your wisdom as well. So tell us about your journey, Cindy.
Oh, well, I got to talk about poetry first real fast because that has been a really important part of the journey, that one I did not see coming. Like when I was a kid, I wrote poems too. And I still have them, just tons and tons of poems. But then I stopped writing poems for about a good 20 years. And I also used to make art as a kid, and I stopped making art for about 20 years. And like in the writing of this book is when the poetry and the art kind of came back in terms of me making it, not looking at it. And I was writing this book, and my book coach, I was trying to explain to her, I was like, I'm trying to explain the time of my life where I learned how to feel my feelings. And I was like, there's no story there. Like it was just, I just slowly worked on it over a course of, a long time. And then she was like, well, how do you feel about poetry? And like the minute she said that, I instantly started crying. And I was just like, and she was freaked out. She was like, you don't have to do it. It's fine. I was like, no, I do have to do it. The reason I'm crying is because I do have to do it. It was just like she unlocked something, like she saw something in me that I had sort of repressed for a very long time. So
it's interesting
poetry is
that way that you've repressed. Because I mean, I also had a similar situation. I repressed the poetry for a few years because I felt at the time, I guess I wasn't really fully connecting with my true self, my true nature.
Yeah.
And in quieting that true nature voice, if that's the right way to say it, or just quieting down my authenticity, I was blocking what my natural voice is. And my natural voice is poetic. And we share that commonality, which is incredible.
That's awesome. 100%. Yeah. So I can answer your actual question too. I have always been obsessed with art my whole life. When I was a kid, I loved to watch the Disney movies. Like I'm of the generation of like Lion King, and we came out with it when I was in the 8th grade, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, like those movies. And I really wanted to be an animator because when I saw them, they made me feel things, and they made me like feel connected in a way I never felt connected. And there was something about them that was just so magical to me. And then as I kind of grew up and I started to learn about like art, works of art and art history, I started to realize that like works of art did the same thing for me that those movies did. And so I just sort of followed this journey of like learning about as much as I could about works of art, and then sharing that magic of it, because there's something that's really special that happens with me with a work of art where like I will, break down in tears, or I will stand there for 30 minutes and I can't walk away, or I'll make like life decisions after spending time in front of a work of art. And so I would start to teach art, and I would, it'd be about the line and the color. We'd talk about the history, but there was always this, like, there's something else happening. There's there's something deeper. There's something more than just let's learn about the artist. And so, I had a whole career around teaching art. I worked in art museums, then I was an art teacher, and then I started my business 10 years ago, Art Class Curator, which helps art teachers teach works of art to their students. But still, there was this voice in the back of my head that's like, this is not it. There's something more. And that's when I started to explore the idea that we can use art as a tool for self-growth and self-development, that art is deeper than just, or is more than just like what it looks like, but it's like what it does to you and what it does to people when they get together and in community, and how you can like learn about yourself through your interactions with art. And my book is about that journey of, as I'm figuring this magic out, I'm also finding myself in there. I loved how you were saying, I had been quieting my own authenticity for a long time too, is hiding who I was. I had a lot of mental health struggles, anxiety, and shame. I was, undiagnosed ADHD, undiagnosed autistic. Like there was so much I was hiding, so much I didn't understand. And that, like, it was really a process of unraveling that. And I did that through my interaction with art and coming to art in different ways. And so my book, in each chapter, is a work of art that I interpret as a way to tell my story. So every chapter, there's Frida Kahlo painting in there, there's Picasso, but there's also a lot of artists that you've probably never heard of. But the Jaws poster is in there when I'm talking about my burnout. So you kind of learn about art and mental health throughout the whole thing.
This is incredible. You said something, Cindy, right now that really stood out to me. You said sharing the magic of the work of art, and we'll make life decisions after a work of art. So it's almost as if you got some type of clarity about your life when you were, while you were creating art, or when you were done with a specific piece, or at the same time?
When I was looking at art made by other people.
So when you were looking at art
like at an art museum,
for example, that other people have created, that's usually when you got some clarity about a life decision?
Yeah. So one example, the biggest example is it was 2005, New Year's Day on 2005. And I was 23 years old, I think 24 years old. And at the time I was applying to get my PhD in art history. And I go to this exhibit. The MoMA in New York was closed for renovations, and they sent their collection to Houston to show it while the museum was closed. And so I got to see all the big, like the best paintings, the ones that the MoMA has. And so I get there, and I'm seeing Starry Night, and I saw some other things, and I walk around the corner, and there was a painting by Picasso, Girl Before a Mirror. And it just like punched me in the stomach. Like I felt like this whole full body reaction to it. And I started to cry, and it was at the kind of early in the exhibit. My husband did the entire rest of the exhibit, came back around, and I'm still standing in front of this one painting.
Wow.
And I get home, like it was a 4-hour drive there and back. Like, and we were too broke to like get a hotel. So we just drove it there in one day. I wrote a 4-page essay, like handwritten from the car, about the experience. And that's when I ditched my PhDs in art history, because I was worried. I was like, if I learn too much about the art, that it'll lose like the magic of it. Like it'll take away the specialness that I feel when I see it for the first time. And and I also wanted to share that feeling too, because it was so big. And then at the same time, so I have all this stuff about my career, but also at the same time, this painting is a girl standing before a mirror. The girl is kind of, it's in Picasso style, so it's kind of disjointed, and she's abstracted, but she's blonde. She's got like blush, and she's just kind of looking a little bit more normal. It's just her presentation of herself. But in the mirror, she's like purple, and there's like an orange tear coming down her cheek, and like she's much more distorted, and there's like these deep, rich colors. And to me, it like really reflected back how I felt. Like I was putting on this persona of having it all together, of knowing who I am and knowing what I'm doing. But like inside, I was feeling so much pain and anxiety. I had like really intense social anxiety and shame. And like I was seeing that reflected back on the canvas. When at that time in my life, I didn't have the tools to be able to really know what was going on inside of me. I didn't even know what anxiety was until like probably a year before that. I'd been suffering for a long time, but it was just not in my radar of things to like to look out for. And so I was seeing that like disjointedness of who I was reflected back. And so I could start to really uncover what was happening for me by looking at the art and engaging
And
with
so
it.
this specific Picasso painting literally spoke to you in a way that hadn't been spoken to you before to give you clarity about the next step in your life.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
something else you just said right now. So what you learned at that moment, looking at this incredible painting that was reflecting exactly the way you were feeling, was that you decided to drop the PhD because you would be learning too much about the art, therefore, in a way, losing the magic that's within you. And instead of learning so much about it, do something about it. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's almost like I ditched the idea that the answers are somewhere else other than me. That I had all the answers that I needed, and I didn't need to go like learn and like heavily research Picasso's life and apply that to his art, which that would have been a terrible thing to do because he was, chauvinist and all the things. That I think all along I knew, and I don't know that I would have put words to it until a good probably 10, 15 years later, that like, I don't, that I'm a very intuitive person and I can follow my intuition. And it's usually a really good driver for me that if I do follow that, it does lead me in the right direction. And I think that was sort of my first inkling that I can trust what I find on the inside and I don't need to go looking for answers somewhere else.
That's incredible and that's beautiful. So at that moment, did you realize then also at the moment that that's when you can trust your intuition, or did that realization come
Oh,
later?
no, I don't think so. I think there's a part of me that has always known I could. But that's really, I think that's been probably my life's work to be able to trust that, because especially in the last few years, I've completely pivoted my business. I've, wrote this memoir that like shared my entire like life secrets out to the world, like everything that I ever thought and felt like out into the world. And like, it has been, I think, a journey to get to a place of self-trust. And even now, like, I do trust myself and I do, but that I don't know that I wonder if I'll ever 100% say yes to that question. Like, so I think that was the beginning and it's still like a work in
That's
progress.
the
I don't know that
process.
it's ever, I think it's just life is always going to throw a new challenge at me that's going to test.
Exactly.
Do you really
Yeah,
trust yourself? Do
definitely.
you really
Yeah,
trust like over and
exactly.
over and over and over again?
Right. It's to give us an opportunity to reassess that
Yeah.
path right there. This is
Yeah.
really amazing. And so I'm really fascinated by the shift that you had with this painting. And so I'm wondering if you've ever had this type of shift yourself when you were completing a work of art that you've created.
Yeah. I have. Like I said, I made art when I was a child and I did in high school. I got an art history degree in college and took a few studio art classes there. But that was really the last time I made art outside of like when I was teaching, making an example for a project we were doing, or, like they wanted a poster for the pep rally, or whatever it was the school wanted. It was never just art made for myself. I think I learned subconsciously and started to believe subconsciously that I didn't have enough good ideas and that I wasn't talented. I had a natural talent, but it wasn't good enough to be an artist. That I was missing something that artists have and I don't have it. And like my college drawing professor, he was like, we did the critique at the end of the semester and we put all of our drawings up and we'd be out in the hall and we'd be talking about our work. And he was like, "You're the hardest working student in the class." And then he gave me a B. I was like, well, I did the very best I could. And I worked so hard that you're calling me the hardest worker. But because what am I lacking is just some sort of talent. And so I had a lot of baggage to unpack from that sort of stifling of that part of
Mhm.
myself. And it was December 2021. And I was sort of meditating I'd just gone through I was in a major burnout. And I was meditating on this idea of like, okay, I've got this power and magic of art and I want to show people, I want to tell them about it. I want to show them the power of it. Like, how do I do that? And the answer, the answer that came to me was through your art. And
Oh, that's beautiful.
it was the same reaction that I had about the poetry. It was like, my first reaction was, no, I can't make money doing that. That was sadly my first reaction. And then the second reaction was, I can't do, I'm not an artist. I can't, I don't have the ideas. I don't have the talent. I don't have like, I can't do that. I can't do that, but I have to do it because now that was such a clear message that I have to do it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I stalled for a really long time. And just had to unpack all those layers of like stories that I made up about what artists are. And, I've dedicated my life to studying art and looking at art. So I had all the brilliant art in my head of like, I'm not as good as that. And so eventually I started to figure out like, what kind of art do I want to make? Like, what can I make? Like what kind of artist am I really had no idea. And so I decided to start with an art journal, which I thought was I was going to show it to you, but it's a podcast, so it doesn't matter.
Sure.
I started to do art journaling, which is basically just a sketchbook, but I do collages and mixed media stuff in there. And
you can show this. This is also on YouTube.
We're doing videos. Oh, good.
Yeah, definitely. Cindy Ingram is about to show us some of her art.
I'm about to unveil my art journal, which I literally just had.
She's about to show us some of her art here.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second. I'm just going to grab the new one. I don't have the old one.
Feel free to check out the YouTube episode, and so you can actually see the art that she is going to be showing right now.
Yeah. I also have little clips of these in my book too. So like I do like collages with word.
Wow, that's
stuff.
beautiful.
This one's upside down. I don't know.
Is this your actual book, or this is like a journal that you've created?
Oh, this is my art journal. These are the actual artworks that I've made. And just straight into the book.
Since this is also an audio podcast for those listening to it, her journal book looks like it's a published book. It doesn't look like it's just a journal book. It looks incredible. The colors are incredible. I mean, wow, that looks fun too. And then you mentioned the word meditating, and I heavily meditate, and the feeling I got from that is meditative. Do you get this meditative feeling when you're doing your art journaling?
Yeah, that's what I learned is, one of the reasons I didn't become an artist is because I didn't have ideas. And I learned when I started to actually make art that that's not how I make art. If I try to have an idea first, I cannot. I just completely freeze up. But what I do is I just start to put down a color. And so one example that I think really answers your question about like getting that sort of clarity from the making of art. And I really wish I could find it. I have no idea where I put it. But there's one that it has a picture of a boy with a ship steering wheel. I got from like an 1870s children's book. And it's collaged on top of like some images of maps. And there's like little cars and like stop signs and things like that in it. And then it has the quote. It's not a quote. I think it's just my own words, but it says, you have everything you need inside of you already. And what I did was I started by just picking colors I wouldn't normally choose. I was like, well, I don't normally use green and yellow. So I was like, let's just go with green and yellow. So I started to do green and yellow. And then I found the map and I was like, oh, I had borrowed this. I had gotten these maps from my friend because I wanted to collage maps. And they were green and yellow. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So then I, do the green and yellow. And then I had that little boy with the ship steering wheel left behind from a different one that I ended up not using it in. And he was just there sitting on my desk. I was like, oh, he's perfect because he's navigating and there's maps. And then I added the cars and the whole time I'm making this, I'm just letting the process unfold. And then the meaning ended up showing up later when I added the quote is like, oh, I already know where to go. It's like everything is already in me. And so it's like the meaning of the artwork was like playing out while I'm actually making it. And usually that's what happens. There's like a meaning does come, but it never starts that way. It just happens like 3/4 of the way through or the very end, or sometimes early on, but most likely it just shows up somewhere along the way.
I love how you said this, Cindy. You said that the meaning is playing out as you're making it. So as you're creating
Yeah.
it, the meaning is coming into fruition. So and that is why you have everything you need inside you already. The meaning already exists, but it's showing itself to you through you as you put it on a piece of paper or a canvas. That's really incredible.
Yeah.
And what's also most incredible is going back to intuition. You chose colors. You said green and yellow, correct? Colors you don't usually choose,
Yeah.
but you just went for it. You didn't doubt it, and it took you to the next. I mean, it showed you the next path and the next path, and you just kept following the path. And at the very end, you had created something that had deep meaning that was already building inside you. So you
Mhm.
planted that seed, and you didn't even know until it became
Yeah.
your work of art, your piece of art. That's really incredible.
And it's a whole metaphor for life. I mean, that's really what I'm doing in my business now is I'm just following like what feels like the next right move. What feels like that, okay, that feels really good. That feels really fun and exciting. That feels easy. That feels light. Okay, let's go to the next thing. And then we'll do that and we'll play around with that for a little while. Oh, that feels great. Let's keep going. That it's that same process of like anytime I try to white knuckle it, both in my life and in my art, but the results are not great. It's when it feels fun, when it feels easy, when it feels like
Yes.
I'm following the path.
Exactly. And I mean, that's really powerful. So what you said is that feels great, that feels exciting, and that feels fun. And I'm writing all this stuff down because you're motivating me as we're talking here.
Thanks.
And when you're doing things that feel great, and when you're doing things that feel fun and they're exciting, that's because that is the stuff that you already know that's been brewing inside you, that's going to show you your life purpose, your life journey. That's
Yeah.
going to be the motivating factor to open up doors for others. And then that's how others see you and your art. And that's what helps them be creative as well.
Yeah. And that's really too how you develop the self-trust too. That like
Yeah.
I've learned through experience now that especially like, yes, in the art, but also in my business, like when I have done the thing that feels really hard and it feels like I'm just walking through mud trying to get it done. And, I'm like, I have to do this because people are relying, because I said I would do it. People are relying on me and everything about this feels really hard. And I'm just crying on my way to do it every time. And like that always leads to like an epic failure. Like that project is, feel like I finally learned that lesson. Hopefully it won't happen again. Knock on wood. The universe likes to toy with me, but when things do feel easy, like that's when I get the rewards. I think I've had enough times seeing that, like, oh, this feeling in my stomach, that like bubbly energy, that like
Yeah.
fizzy excitedness, that like where I want to do the work, like that usually does lead to good results in the end of what
Always.
I'm trying to accomplish. So I keep learning that lesson. And so I can learn to trust that feeling a little more every time it
That's
shows
so
up.
beautiful. I love it. I absolutely love this. Thank you. Let's talk about your book. What motivated you to write your book? Art is about being whole. I would love to talk about this. Why and
Yeah.
how is art about being whole? Let's start
So,
there.
okay. Oh gosh.
Well,
Okay. So
first,
why
actually,
didn't
here's
I?
the question. Did you
Yes.
come up with that title when the book was done, or before the book was done, or somewhere in the middle?
It was in the middle. It was a line from the book. And then my book coach, who is also my publisher, she saw that and she was like, she highlighted it and put possible title question mark. And the minute I saw that, I was like, no, that's the title. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even need it. I did entertain some other titles just because,
Yeah.
I didn't want to like, but I just knew the minute I saw that, I was like, no, that's exactly what this title is. Because art to me, like there are so many places in the world where art, like you ask someone if they like to go to the art museum, typically they'll laugh at you, or they'll be like, no, why would I do that? Because it's pretentious, it's elitist, it's something that's not accessible to the average person, that I have to be somebody different to enjoy something like that.
Sure.
And then there's also at the same time a lot of wounds about people's own like creativity, where they discovered early on, like I did, that they are not an artist and they're not creative and they can't do it. And so they built up these stories that they've told themselves their whole life that they can't do it. But I've learned that art is not about any of those things. It's not about what the art looks like in the end. It's not about like the history around it, that it's not about the the different types of line and the different types of value, like that's all in there, but that art is about something much more. And it's about like being in the moment, being in the presence, being in connection with you, and the art and you are just like meeting, and there's just this like excited energy between the two, like where the artist and the viewer meet. Like it's so much more than just like this painting hanging on a wall that you're like, oh, how much is that worth? But it's like, it's so much deeper, and the possibilities are so much more. So
I love this, because actually, you just brought me back to another question that I was going to ask you earlier, and you just reminded me when you were describing what art is about. I was wondering, when you were rediscovering the fact that you can rediscover and come back and connect with art, you were having these doubtful feelings of, I'm not talented, or I'm not an artist. And I was going to ask you, what is art and what is talent? And you just answered that. It's about being whole. And so if you get a student or someone that's asking you from experience, like, well, how is it possible that I can be an artist if I'm not as good as you, or I'm not as good as someone else? And then you can, I mean, I guess, what do you tell someone when they tell you that? I'm not an artist.
Yeah. It's
Or
so funny
I'm
because
not as good as you, or I'm not talented.
Yeah. Before I would tell any student who said that yes, of course they're an artist, but I wouldn't believe it about myself. I think an artist is just someone who, I would say an artist is someone who has that sort of natural instinct, that kind of like when you were writing poetry, like you just had that when you were 7 years old. It's like this innate need to process your experience of the world and to share it.
Yes.
And that can happen with, in our journal like mine, it can happen with a book, it can happen with dance, it can happen with a business, it can happen, it can happen in so many different ways, but it's just the creation of something through your own view and unique perspective of the world in order to connect with your deeper humanity and share that with someone else who is ready to connect with your deeper humanity.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So art is an innate need to process your experience and share it. And when you share it, that's when it becomes a gift to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful thing. And so if art is about being whole, what is wholeness?
Wholeness is accepting who you are as you are, and embracing yourself as, and all the parts of you. And you can strive for growth, and you can work to better yourself, but like at the end, it's not from a place of brokenness. It's from a place of like, I love who I am, and and accepting that.
So
I always felt broken my whole life. There was always something I was like trying to figure out. Turns out the thing I was trying to figure out was autism, but it just took a very long time to figure that out. But once I kind of figured out who I am, it's like, oh, okay. I don't care about what people think of me, or I trust that, have the self-trust. If I have that like foundation of embracing myself as I am, then I can do anything from that place.
And so in accepting, and I can imagine that if an artist starts creating art before they have fully accepted their wholeness, the art is going to completely change from the time that they have not accepted the wholeness to the time where they feel whole. I can imagine that the art looks like night and day.
Oh yeah, I can. If you just use me as an example and you look at the writing, that in 2021, like I was going through a major burnout, but in the years prior to that, I couldn't even write like a sentence. Every bit of writing in my business was outsourced to someone on my team. If I even needed to write like a paragraph about what we offer to teachers, I couldn't even write it. Like I could not write anything. I couldn't write an email. Like I was completely stifled in my voice. And and at that time though, is I was doing, I was not feeling aligned with the work that I was doing. Like I was aligned with the work, but not like how I was doing it. There was a lot of like trying to be perfect and trying to be really professional and trying to do it right and do it perfect. And I got so stuck in that like I just completely burnt out. I couldn't write anything. And so really this book was me learning to write again after not being able to write. And it started out as like this kind of textbooky type thing. And it had all this academic stuff. And there was like a whole chapter on like, I mean, it was a lot of like explaining myself and why you should listen to me type of language at the beginning, because it was from that place of kind of rediscovery of what I was even doing. And then it was kind of halfway through the process, I realized like all of those chapters didn't, that was just me trying to defend myself. It wasn't really like the art that was trying to come out, because I believe now that when I had that download that it was my art that was, sorry, I feel like I'm talking in circles around this, but I'm gonna arrive at a place.
Sure. No worries.
Okay, I'm catching myself going in 5 directions. I'm trying to reel it back. That download I had, like, how do I show them the power of art? That my art is not just the actual like visual art that I made, that it's the poetry, it's the entire book. Like this, the whole book that is what I'm trying to show. And so like, yeah, if you looked at my writing 3 years ago and you look at this book, you wouldn't even recognize who wrote, me in there, because I was so far away from my artist self, I guess, in that moment.
And so in finding your wholeness, that came in rediscovering and accepting the parts of yourself that were at one point feeling more broken, and then accepting those broken parts as parts that actually made you your whole energetic, vibrant self in this human mind, body, and soul. You were then able to reconnect with your authenticity, which is writing and art, and recreate it so that it makes most sense authentically for you, and therefore connecting more in flow with others.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely 100% all of that. It was just finding who I really am underneath all of those layers of masking, basically hiding who I really was underneath, and then learning that who I really am underneath is actually better than the thing that I was trying to portray to the world of being perfect and being like organized and having it all together and being impressive. That like my messy self is way more interesting and way more brilliant, way more creative than that like polished version of myself I was trying to convey to the world.
Yeah, because when we try too hard, that's being inauthentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something I was thinking right now, do you ever go back? Because I've done this, but sometimes I have a hard time seeing where I was in life. I'll go back to something I wrote or something I scribbled, and I was like, what was that? What was happening in my life back then? I can't connect with it. Does that ever happen to you, or does it take you back? Is it a time machine? Are you able to go back to a piece of art or a piece of writing and be like, I know where I was at and what I was feeling at this time and what I was doing?
Yeah. I would say I'm pretty capable of doing it, but it was something I had to do in order to write the memoir. Like if I'm going to adequately write about the struggles that I was experiencing, like when I was 24 years old, I have to actually put myself back into that feeling, and I have to remember what it would feel like, and I have to feel those feelings again so that I can describe them.
Makes sense.
And write about them. And so the year and a half of reliving my entire life and writing it was so, like, it was so healing, but it was so tumultuous. Like, and it was like, oh, you're writing about how learning to feel your feelings. Let's throw something at you that is going to really test if you really know how to feel your feelings. And so it was like I was getting thrown all these situations, and it was like I felt like I was manifesting them in it, or it was like I was thinking about something from my past, and I was like, was it really that bad? Was it? maybe I'm just making this up. There was a lot of internal gaslighting. And then something would happen in my life to where it would prove like, oh no, you didn't make that up. That was a real thing. And this is proof of it. And so there was a lot of that happening. So for the most cases, I was able to really remember, because I am a very internal person too. So I spend a lot of time in my own brain. And so it's pretty easy. The harder thing for me is like the memories. I can remember the feelings really well, because I don't remember like the actual like events and the conversations and the people as clearly, because I don't really I don't have a very visual memory. So it's really more of a feeling memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The feeling that something ignited or triggered within you.
Yeah.
That kind of just stayed there like a little spark.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it's like I remember the feel it, and then some of the memories, like some of the actual memories will come. But the feelings are easy to recall.
So what pushed you to write this book? What was the motivating force to write your memoir?
Originally it was as a way to figure out what I was doing with my life. But then it became, it really became something that I had to do. Like I couldn't not do it. And that's the best way I can explain it. Like it was just like this thing that I knew needed to exist, and I knew that I had to write it. And so I just kept writing it. And it was impressive for me, because I generally am a really fast action taker, and I like it to end a project. And it was hard to have something so process based and so like long term. Like that was a lesson in letting go, and a lesson in a lot of things in life too, because it was a hard process. But it was just, I had this internal drive to take everything that I've thought and felt my whole life and turn it into something different. Like I guess that's what artists.
Right. Yeah,
are.
definitely.
So I was just acting out what it is to be an artist, I guess.
And also you are an art teacher.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I haven't taught since 2017. So, I've always loved talking about art with people. So I do still teach art in terms of, I do a program called the Art Connection Circle, and it's adults, and we get in a Zoom room basically, and we just
I love this. The
talk
Art
about art
Connection
together.
Circle.
Yeah. And we do like kind of self-development-y stuff. We talk about our values, and we talk about what we want to feel in our lives, and we kind of dream into that. And then we do it while looking at works of art and talking about them and interpreting art. It's kind of using the artworks as metaphor for our lives.
It's interesting because even if there's, as you're saying this, what I'm thinking is, while you're talking things out and you're connecting with people, maybe there are some artists that are not writers, and I can feel that a poetic part of them comes out, and without them even being fully aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I make them write poetry too.
Oh, you do?
So. They're gonna be writers by the end of it. Yeah.
How do you do that?
I'm just telling them to do it, and they do it. It's the magic of.
I mean, do you give them a topic like bees?
Oh no, no. It's about whatever artwork we're looking at. Like we looked at one recently, and it's in my book. It's called "Dance with the Nine Opals," and the artist is Ithel Colquhoun, and I do not know how to say her name, so that could be totally wrong. But the artwork is very musical, and we were talking a lot about music and what the music would sound like, and and I was like, okay, now we're going to write song lyrics for this,
Oh,
for
wow,
this
I love
song.
this.
And so they had to write song lyrics. So it was about the painting. So everything is always about the artwork, but it's about yourself, seeing yourself in the artwork, and where do you find yourself in it? And because that's really what I model in the book, is every chapter there's the artwork that I'm telling my story, but there's always the artwork we're coming back to and using it as a metaphor in lots of different ways. And so we do that in the program too, is they're writing their song lyrics or their poem about the artwork, but it's really about themselves too.
You're helping people rediscover who they are.
Yeah.
Now that's magic.
Yes.
You're magical, Cindy.
Thanks. I'm just starting to own that. I just started calling myself magical with the writing of the book, and I feel it.
Yeah, you are. I mean, it came out of my mouth for a reason, right?
It took me a long time to accept it, but I believe you. I believe it now.
That's beautiful. That's really incredible. When did you start the Art Connection Circle?
I started it in, this is my, I'm in the middle of one round and it's the third round. So it was spring 2022, I think. And then I took a year while I was writing the book where I didn't do it, but.
So like almost 2 years of doing the Art Connection. And are these people from all over the world?
Yes, I've had people from the Philippines. Someone right now is in Colombia, and someone is in China too in the program right now as well. It's morning for him when we meet, and it's evening for us. So it's really fun to get, because that's another part of my work that's really special. Like we've been talking a lot about sort of my journey and internal experience, but in my experience with works of art. But when you get a group of people with a work of art, like that is power. And I've been just chasing that my whole life. My first art discussion I ever led, I was like 19 years old. And I was like, I want to do that every day for the rest of my life. Like it is so fun because so many people in our world, like we don't talk about anything interesting. You know, it's just like small talk. It's like, we're going to talk about our kids, or we're going to talk about what we did yesterday, or what we're going to have for dinner. You know, it's like super boring things.
Yeah. Like
but like when you get we get people around a work of art, we're talking about the universe. Suddenly we're talking about like our deepest thoughts and fears. And we're talking about like everything, because the art brings up everything. And it's so surprising how deep it can get so quickly, because you hear one person's story and then you connect to them in different ways. And so everybody's kind of connecting to each other and in different ways that feel, you get to know someone. Like I think the people in this group know each other better than like people in their lives know them, because they just
possibly
can just share their inner thoughts and feelings, the things that like you kind of freak people out if you share them in your average life, you know. So,
and also what I'm feeling, if you're creating with art with people in the circle and everybody's being really open with their feelings and their fears or whatever's going on in their life, it's going to create a different piece of art that they probably wouldn't create had they not been in that circle, connecting with them collectively. It's like the energies are sparking a specific part of their brain to recollect a certain memory that's going to have them put something else down on paper or create a different color or something that they haven't seen before, because of the connection that's going on and that energy that's
and they're not even really making, it's not a program where we make art. It's, you know, every now and then I'll incorporate it, but I've noticed that a lot of the people do start making art because of it, in between sessions, and they'll come and they'll share, because they just they realize they have something to say. And I think a lot of people don't know that they do until they actually find themselves in a room where it feels safe to talk about who you are. And they're like, wait, I am interesting. I do have interesting things to say. And so then they start to like build that confidence in themselves and like love of who they are and what they have to offer the world.
And that also builds the creative process too.
Yeah.
Definitely. How do they connect to your Art Connection Circle?
If they go to cindyingram.com/circle, there will be, depending on when you go to the website, there will either be a wait list or there will be open registration. The next one I'm going to run is summer of 2024. So that's coming. I don't know when this is going to go live, but we'll have one in the summer. And then I don't know when the next one. I'm going to do theme ones too. So we'll look out for that too. So.
And how long are the circles for?
9 weeks.
9 weeks? How fun, Cindy.
Yeah.
I love this. It's incredible.
Thanks. It's a fun program.
Everyone here on a Little Less Fear podcast. Cindy, where can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find your incredible book, Art is About Being Whole, a memoir? How can they get a hold of you?
Awesome. If you just go to cindyingram.com, you'll find information about the book. It's on Amazon and stuff too, but if you want a signed copy, you can order it from my website. And then my links to my social media are on cindyingram.com too. I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to end this with a poem that I wrote. And I'm excited by saying thank you for motivating me. So here it goes. It's called It's a Dance. My fingers trust my pen. and my pen moves with every thought I jot down as words. And as they dance, my fingers and pen, I take a chance in unraveling word art. As we dance, we hold each other tight and sometimes loosely, sometimes colorful and sometimes dark, but always in rhythm with the motions of my emotions, coming together for the love of it, coming together for the joy of it, dancing together until my fingers no longer have strength. May I have this dance. And that's it.
Oh, snaps. That was awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the inspiration and the motivation. I really appreciate it. And let's keep in touch. It's been a pleasure to finally meet you after all this time. Wishing you an incredible, happy first day of spring. And yeah, let's keep connected. I already started following you on Instagram, so I got you there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
That
so
was
much,
fun.
Cindy. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family about A Little Less Fear podcast. And if you are interested in being on my show, feel free to leave me an email at alittlelessfear@gmail.com. Or if you have any questions or comments and you also want to leave me an additional message, you can also do so from my website, leaving an inquiry at www.alittlelessfear.com. You can get a copy of my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Amazon Kindle Unlimited, also titled A Little Less Fear. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Leave me a review if you get a chance. I love to receive feedback, questions, and comments. And any way that I can be of support to you, please let me know. Thank you so much. I love you. Wishing you love, light, happiness, and many blessings your way.